All right, welcome in to this week at Gridiron Icon, and let's just jump right to it. This is a special week. This might be, to this point at Gridiron, the most special week in that not only one of our guests that we've had in the past, two of our most popular episodes joining me, but he's not just joining me for a third episode. I couldn't be more excited to announce that my friend, former NFL Gridiron Icon, New Mexico Lobo, and a host of other things, as we're going to find out in the future, Preston Dennard is joining Gridiron Icon as a co-host of this program. My friend Preston, welcome. I couldn't be more excited about this, man.
Well, I don't know if you're that excited or I'm even more excited. This is a great opportunity, and we just hit it off. It's almost like that girlfriend-boyfriend deal, you know?
I'm not cute enough.
There you go.
I tell you what, from the second I met you, and for those just listening, go back and listen to our other two episodes. Actually, three, because we had Preston's friend, George LaFrance, AFL legend, on here a few weeks ago. We just hit it off. I got to gush for a minute, and I know this makes you uncomfortable because you're a humble guy, but Preston was one of my favorite players as a kid. I'm a few years behind him, not a lot, but enough that when you're a kid, you're looking up to somebody like Preston Dennard. I was a wide receiver in junior high and high school, and I wanted to be number 88. And watching him lay out on Monday Night Football was like, that's it. I'm done. I want to be a wide receiver. So this is, for those listening in, I'm going to gush a little bit. This is one of my childhood idols, and now to count him as a friend and a partner and a co-host on Gridiron is extremely special for me.
You better be careful with that.
It's heating up in here. It's heating up in here. So I can't imagine the things that we're going to be able to do together, and the guests and people that Preston, of course, as a former NFL legend, also an entrepreneur and philanthropist today, since he's retired from the NFL, that you're going to be able to bring to the table. Guys that I looked up to playing, and I know a lot of listeners on this program will be super excited to be able to watch you kick it off with ex-teammates and ex-peers in the NFL, man.
Yes. I'm quite excited about that because when we first started talking about this, I started taking my little notebook and jotting down names and contacts and all that. And I got to 100 and I said, ooh, we should do a show.
Wow.
That's names. And so you and I have had a chance to talk. And so for our audience and our listeners and viewers, they'll have the pleasure to realize a number of great changes in regards to guests, because we're no longer just strictly football and maybe not strictly Rams, but we're going to go across the board. We're going to really reach out into the music industry and folks that in different areas that have a stronghold somehow or had been into football, which is our favorite sport. And so we're quite excited about that. And I'm excited about joining you. I really appreciate the opportunity to doing this with you.
Oh, man, I tell you, I've been on cloud nine for a couple months now since we started talking about this. And to Preston's point, for listeners, look, this thing is evolving. Gridiron Icon has had some great former players on. We'll continue to do that. That's our namesake. But to his point, I think, and that's really something I got to give you credit for as a guy. You know, I mentioned it in our first episode together on this program that I was also a kid who liked to write, and there was articles on you in 79, 80 in Sports Illustrated about your love for prose and the word, and you've really brought that to the table on this. So we're going to expand. We're going to bring in thought leaders, musicians, people with other rare gifts and hobbies, and that's really the backbone of this program, right, Preston? That football players are so much more than just who we enjoy on Sundays or Mondays. We want to bring the humanity. We want to bring who they are as people. And that includes other walks of life.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, one of the other things too that I'm quite excited about is some of the storylines that we could bring to the table, and just a few that I even have here that obviously I haven't shared with you, but you and I have talked about these. And so athletes transitioning from their NFL career. How tough is that? A lot of people don't understand that. How easy can it be? What is some of the protocols that need to be in place for guys to make that transition? Other areas would be athletes who have turned politicians. I bet people will be very interested in wanting to know, well, who was? Jack Kemp, we can remember him, state senator all the way up in New York. And then, Steve Largent, we'll talk about some of those folks and maybe have them on as guests. And then athletes, now you're going to remember this, but I've got a big question. Do they still do it? And that's athletes on the Wheaties box. Do you remember what year that started?
Ooh, I do not.
Oh, I'm not even going to spill it. I'm going to wait till we do that in our show. But
teaser.
That's going to be an interesting thing. Yeah, nice little tease. And then a couple of more. A big question that a lot of college coaches who may not have had the opportunity to play professionally, that mindset that they don't believe former athletes can coach. So we want to address that with some of our guests, maybe even have on some of the former players that have turned and gone to college coaching, high school coaching. I remember Willie Miller that played for us. He went back to, and I believe Alabama or Louisiana. And he became a really successful head coach in high school and retired from that. So that's one. And then here's a good one. Female coaches now being accepted on men's sports programs.
Huge.
That's a whole different dynamic and a great conversation to have. So we're looking forward to seeing if I can reel in one of these female coaches and just talk about the opportunities women have in that. And then the last one of the thoughts you've already mentioned, writers and those who have turned into novelists and folks that do broadcasting themselves. So we've got a great venue of opportunity to really stretch an athlete just out of that old uniform and find out what they're all about in life.
God, I can't, man, I'm so jacked for this. You and I, and off air, just giving the listeners a preview, you have a lot of NBA connections.
Yep.
With some of my, I also happen to be a Lakers fan. There is a connection to Los Angeles for me, and the Michael Coopers of the world. You mentioned musicians, something that we unpacked with you. Still involved in your church choir, and as a guy who enjoys that creative process, Wayman Tisdale. Some of the guys of the past that have gone from being in the spotlight in sports to showing where their creative juices flow, after they leave the game. And I just think that is a fantastic subject for people to tune into. So with you, and we didn't get into it a lot in past episodes, but you actually ventured into the broadcasting world for a time. Tell us about that. And maybe I got to figure out what I can learn from you in this format as well.
Well, I ended up after graduating from University of Mexico. I ended up graduating from Columbia Broadcast School and School of Broadcasting. And so I was in LA and I started my career there. I did some sideline reporting for NFL games. Sports Channel West did some shows with them and also covering NFL games as well. Did some college game and also, you got to do some high school games. And so I had a liking for that. I knew I could do it. It was fun doing play-by-play and then doing color commentating. And I've had the chance to continue to do some of that at the college level, even presently. But it's something that I've always enjoyed doing, something I've always wanted to do. And in some cases, folks think that's a natural transition for guys to come out. They do it a lot more today, a lot more easier, and they work with guys. And but back then, when I was playing and coming out, it was very critical. And so it wasn't that successful of a transition for a lot of former players, but it was a love of mine. I really did enjoy that.
Man, I love that. And I love that we're going to get to leverage that on this show and this program. That is kind of a thing. I mean, maybe we're starting to venture into episode subjects, but I think people get this idea that an ex-athlete can just roll out in front of a microphone and it's just so easy. Even this morning, I was watching RG3 on the college football and I was really impressed with him. He brought his personality and he was just, he's a former Heisman winner, didn't have the great NFL career due to injury that people thought. But what is that perception that an athlete can just roll out? You went to school. You actually learned the ins and outs. I mean, the other thing is this, what is Tom Brady when he retires? What is it? He's going to Amazon for like 250 million. I mean, I guess if you had that deal, you and I wouldn't be hanging out on this show, huh?
Oh, we'd still be doing it.
We would. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. We'd still be doing it. Well, as far as RG3, I remember when I first heard him on broadcasting, and it happened to be this spring in regards to the U.S. Track and Field Championships. He was there in Oregon, and he did such a great job. And I was very excited to hear him, because nobody ever knew that he was capable of doing this. But he had great perspective. He had great insight, being a former track athlete himself at Baylor, and just a wonderful addition to that entire team.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was really impressed with him. And then, in the last few years, I guess Preston Dennard is now falling into this category as he moves into a new chapter with Gridiron Icon. But even like Tony Romo, and we saw the crazy Manning brothers broadcast on Monday Night Football. That was super fun. So we're entering a new era, man, and we're going to bring that to Gridiron here.
We sure will. I'm excited about it.
I am very, very excited about it. So as you listen, no secret that most of us who get into this this venue, the podcasting world, the industry, I guess we'll say industry. Are we that official now? You're still working full time. Last night we were talking. You're watching football with family. You're still doing that. What do you hope, maybe for the listeners, and I didn't, listen, folks, we don't cue each other up for this stuff. We're just rambling. What do you hope to get out of reconnecting with former teammates and some of the folks that we'll have on Gridiron Icon?
Well, actually, I've never left that platform. I've got great relationships with a lot of guys that have played ball. I've got great relationships all across the sports lines. And so what brought that to the table was a lot of celebrity golf tournaments. And thank God I can hit a golf ball.
I cannot.
Well,
confirmed.
I always say this, Stacy. Whatever shot somebody else has, I got that in my bag too. So
nice. But, always the athlete.
Oh, well, yeah. But I mean, we've got a big heart and desire for it. But, I've got so many relationships out there. And I used to run that 20-year golf tournament for our foundation here in Albuquerque. And I'm part of that ALS foundation here in New Mexico. And we bring in celebrity athletes as well, even today. So there's still a great connection there. But back when I ran my tournament starting in 95, I was able to reach out to people like the Globetrotters and have representatives come for our tournament, actors, entertainers, basketball and baseball players, and so on and so on. And that's what I'm going to lean on and pull on in regards to our podcast. Like I said, I went through 100 names immediately, and I went, oh my gosh, we're ready to roll.
Wow, man. Oh, well, I'll tell you, is there, and again, I have not prepped you for this, so this is raw and organic, folks. Is there a big whale or a teammate or a thought leader, somebody that you really want to throw on this show that you've got as a big goal? Maybe to me, it's a big goal, but to someone like you who runs in that world or that circle, probably not as much. But
well, I can tell you this. Here's one. Gene Huey. And if folks don't recognize that name right away, Gene Huey was a former Wyoming University back in the late 60s when it was a real challenge for Black student athletes. He became an All-American, two-way starter, receiver, and defensive back. He ends up being a very successful college coach at Ohio State, Arizona State. He started at New Mexico. He was my first receivers coach at New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And we ended up having a great friendship even to today. And here's the kicker. He ended up going through the NFL minority coaching program years ago, and he stuck and was the running backs coach for the Indianapolis Colts for 20 years. And he coached under 5 different head coaches, and he had all those great Hall of Fame quarterbacks, or running backs, excuse me. And you think of the Marshall Faulks and Edgerrin James and all that. I've got a photo of Gene with both of them. And so he's got great stories about the Peyton Mannings and the Steelers and all the other guys that they competed against. But at the Colts, he was a very successful measure. I don't know if there's another coach that's been with a team for 20 plus years under different head coaches in the NFL. It's unheard of. He's one of our guests that's going to join us on our upcoming shows.
Oh man, I'm pumped. That is phenomenal. I mean, that's that intergenerational, like for a guy to survive in the NFL, now these coaches are in and out in 2 or 3 years, if they're not performing up to speed. And plus the league's gotten so young, the Sean McVays, the Kevin O'Connells, the, Kyle Shanahan's, everybody's younger now. These old school guys that this league was built on is really exciting, at least for certain generational fans. We want to go back and talk to those guys. I've got some big guys that I'm going to lean on you, hope to get. No secret here, and mostly for the audience, but obviously I've got 2 jerseys on my wall. The guy I'm hanging out with, and Nolan Cromwell, the guy he went up against in practice. So that's a big one for me personally, as I was a big fan of you guys on both sides of the ball. But we've talked a lot about, which we alluded to earlier, thought leaders and some of the people that you've come across just in the industry that I think are going to really add some depth to Gridiron Icon and give people an opportunity for some variety. I've always came into this with kind of a inside the actor studio type feel. If anybody remembers James Lipton, where he's hitting them with questions, we have fun with our 2-minute drill, and we're going to evolve that for those listening. The Preston Dennard 2-minute drill or something. We're going to have some fun with some stuff. But I think that this, in terms of big whales, guys that we want to have on here. Obviously, I'm a Rams fan. You're an ex-Ram, but that's going to expand. So if you're listening, folks, thank you, for listening. Second, things are about to blow up on Gridiron Icon. We're going to have a lot of fun with this thing, and it's going to evolve. We're going to have features and all sorts of other interesting stuff as we move forward in this thing. So, Preston, maybe just for those that haven't heard the first couple of episodes with us when we first met, can you kind of give us a breakdown where you're at now, where you live? You're so much more than a football player. Philanthropist, entrepreneur. You kind of just give us kind of a quick bio that'll tease people to go back and watch our first couple episodes.
Well, here's a big tease. I'm retired. I live in Denmark. I don't worry about anything. Just kidding. I wish. I'm actually back in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Been back here since 1991, where I graduated from the University of New Mexico and played ball. I've done so much in this community, from a little bit of broadcasting to coaching at the university, and moved into private business, continued my motivational speaking platform, and still do a little bit today. Stacy, you'd be excited to know yesterday I was at an elementary school called Georgia O'Keeffe, and I spoke to 3rd and 4th graders. Oh my gosh, they're so gorgeous. So I still do that here in the community. I'm actually the director of business development and marketing for a company that does athletic surfaces, indoors and outdoors. I've been doing that for 17 years. I love it. I travel with it, do a lot of conferences. I do a lot of trade shows, and just love being on campuses and visiting with coaches and administrators. And every now and then I get a chance to walk out on that football field and stand on the sideline and watch their teams practice. So that's what I'm doing. I've got 5 boys, and my 4th son is in college. He has a game here in about 3 hours that I'm looking forward to seeing on TV. He plays for Ottawa University out of Arizona, and he's a punter. He's the weird one in the family, but all my boys, it stuck with him. So I'm doing that, traveling, part of the ALS Foundation on their board of directors. So as you can see, I've got a little busy seat, but I do manage it well. But my latest excitement is being on the screen with Mr. Bauman.
Oh man, I'm not worthy. I am not worthy, but I got to tell you, I love it. I love what you're doing with kids. We're gonna tackle that subject as this thing evolves too. That giving back to kids is just so important. I got to tell you, so as you look at this thing, and it is football themed, but we've already talked about the fact that that's going to morph and evolve. What's something you miss about? You mentioned standing on the sidelines. what's something you miss about playing in the NFL, or is there anything? Do the bones creak a little bit now, or
They never stop creaking. I mean, they're still,
yeah,
I wake up on the side of the bed in the morning and I go, oh, and I just start stretching and stretching. Take that hot shower and I'm good to go. But I can tell you this, and this will be a great question for a lot of our guests who are football players anyway, yeah, maybe other sports too, is how many of them cannot go to the arena or the stadium or the baseball field and sit in the stands and watch the sport that they used to play.
wow.
I can't do it. I've only done it once.
Wow.
And it was the year after I retired. I went with my agent at the time, Harold Daniels, in the Coliseum to watch the Raiders play somebody. And I sat in the lower level, probably 5 rows, 6 rows from the field. And very difficult for so many reasons. But one of the funny reasons is we got fans screaming about something, and it's not even related to the play. They have no clue about what's going on. They're just screaming, right? So that was a light part of it, but it was just, I was so removed. So when I go to high school games or college games or any games that I want to go see, I've got to be on the field, because that's when I can identify the ambiance, the closeness, the excitement, and just what I've lived, that ground level, eye to eye, guy right in front of you. That experience is unlike any other experience that anybody could have. And that's the one thing the fans miss. And so that'd be interesting to ask some of our guests that's going to come on later.
Absolutely, man. I got to tell you, I've often wondered for somebody like yourself to hear you're on the sidelines. Do you just find yourself gravitating towards the wide receivers? Like if you're watching a game, their footwork, the way they're running routes, or is that just hard to because you've coached too. People don't realize you've been a coach.
Yes. Yeah. I've coached at a couple of universities and high schools and some youth sports too as well. That's another subject matter that's going to be a good one too, youth coaching. But I've done all that, and I've had the experience of doing that. When I am viewing a game, I view it from a different perspective, but not a critical eye. I do notice the wide receivers and what they do very naturally. But then I'm also looking at the linemen. How did they get in the position they got in? And the quarterback and how they're reading. So the coaching concept comes out at that time. But truly, I've never watched a game like a fan, because the fan wants to follow the ball.
Yeah.
I could care less about the ball. I will isolate. And when I coach kids, I tell them in their position, I want you to isolate and just watch your position on the screen. I said, watching that is totally different than anything you've ever done before, but you're no longer a fan if you want to play this game. You got to zero in and watch your position. Watch the footwork. Watch how that guy got out of position, or how he got turned, or how the receiver got held up because he was standing up high. Those are the things that I look at that make a game very enjoyable for me, or frustrating for that matter. Yeah. But that's how I view it. Almost close to when you're watching game film, preparing for a game. That's a lot more strenuous in detail, but you just can't get away from that flavor.
Yeah, I can't. It makes sense. I mean, once you've played at that level, you don't look at it like a fan does. Plus, I got to tell you, man, I try to stay off Twitter. I'm just going to be honest about that. It's a necessary evil in our industry. But what some of the fans stuff, I'm one of those guys, so I'm throwing myself under the bus. But for a former player, it's got to be so frustrating when they're jabbering all of this crazy stuff, and you're like, that doesn't have anything to do.
Does this give you a clue? I no longer have Facebook.
Oh, smart man. Let that be locked in here on Gridiron Icon. Don't try to find Preston on Facebook. They're necessary evils. That's all it is, folks.
I got a phone. They can call me.
Give me a call. Give me a call, or come listen on Gridiron Icon. Absolutely. I'll tell you what. Is there anything you miss about Sundays, man? I mean, it's been a few years, but
well, no, I was going to say even years ago, I really don't miss it, but it really came to light when a fourth grader yesterday asked me, "How long has it been since you played?" Wow. And I had to think, 37 years? Is that amazing?
That can't be true, is it? What year is it? Yeah, you're right.
85 was my last season. So I'm like, oh my gosh. But no, I think I'm good with it. I don't miss anything. What I did, it's out on that field. It's in the record books. It's on the videos. It's on the films. I can't say I feel bad that I didn't give my greatest effort against the Cowboys or against the Packers or against the Steelers or whatever. I did. Would I have wanted to accomplish more in the game? Sure. But even with that thought, I don't miss the game at all. I love athletics. And a lot of people ask me, here's an interesting thing you'll find. I don't normally watch the NFL much.
Wow.
Maybe a featured game or maybe a Monday night game I'll usually watch. But on Sundays, I hardly ever watch the games. And that's almost with a lot of sports except for college sports, because especially professionally, I know the playoffs very well. I was very successful and fortunate to be in playoffs each and every one of my years except one in the NFL. So I know what that's like. And I know that drive, and I know the dynamics and what a player has to do to get ready to play. And so that's when I really watch the games at the professional level, because I know I'm going to get their best. I know I'm going to get a very interesting game, and it's not going to be the mundane thing like it was during the season. So I'm excited about that. And then my critical eye, and I said I'm not critical, but my critical eye will analyze the play of those guys in the playoff rounds. College sports, I'll watch all day long, and it can be anything. And I think I told you before, my favorite sport in college to watch, volleyball.
I love volleyball.
Oh, yes. Oh, love volleyball.
Volleyball's an awesome sport.
Yeah, very awesome. Well, there's some tremendous athletes in volleyball.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to mention a name. You may have heard it, but a few years ago, this young lady graduated from USC named Samantha Bricio. 6'2" Mexican young lady from Guadalajara, Mexico. Gorgeous, beautiful. But Stacy, let me tell you, if you ever stand in front of her and she does this with that volleyball, run. She's going to take that head off, brother.
I love it. Gosh, some of those volleyball girls are, I remember Gabby Reese and they are ferocious with that thing. Oh, yeah. Like, there's no way I'm getting in a sand pit with any of them. Forget it. Yeah.
Sand pit, wood floor, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm thinking the other stuff. Wow. So fun. Very interesting that you don't watch the games. That's kind of how I feel a little bit about the NBA. When Magic, I was a big Laker fan, Showtime Lakers. I'm sorry, folks. Nothing has ever compared for me to how fun and exhilarating those years were against the Celtics and Pistons. And, it's just incredible. I can't watch the regular season now, as a subject for another day, but when it gets to the playoffs, I want to see what Steph Curry's doing. So I kind of get that mentality. Well, there you have it, folks. Myself, Stacey Bauman, some guy on the West Coast, and a guy that he has always looked up to and respected, Preston Dennard. We are going to be the hosts of Gridiron Icon moving forward. We've given you a bit of a tease on what Preston is going to bring to this fantastic format and how this thing's going to evolve over the next few years. And by the way, he doesn't have Facebook, so don't go looking for him. Find him on Gridiron Icon if you want to talk to the great Preston Dennard.
Love it, Stacey. Love it.
So here we go. We're off and running, folks. We're going to be, we're working towards a weekly show with guests. Sometimes it'll just be Preston and myself talking football. I'm going to force him to watch some LA Rams football. I'll force him, and he'll hate me for it, but we're going to talk about that. But you got a little bit of a preview. This is a big day in the history of this show. Big things coming. It's just the beginning. To my friend Preston Dennard, any parting shots as we close out this intro episode?
Let's go hit it out of the park.
And by the way, he loves baseball. You just saw it, folks, if you're watching on YouTube. So here we go. We thank you. Like, subscribe on YouTube. We do have a Gridiron Icon Facebook page and an Instagram, Twitter. we'll share more on that as we grow. But thanks for joining us. And this is a monumental day at the time of this taping. To my friend Preston Dennard, thank you, sir. Let's get this thing off the ground.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll see you next week, folks, here on Gridiron Icon. Be well.